Give me your best force move.
My best force move. I can do that.
A company is only as strong as its employees, and Disney are really struggling in that department right now.
Describe The Acolyte in 5 words.
A battle for power.
The Acolyte interviews were really weird because while some people came in and just spoke about the show, others decided, we need to send a message.
My character, she's a powerful leader. Yes, yes. In a very woman-centered world. Star Wars is very, patriarchal.
Yes, it quickly gets hammered home that I'm not the target audience for The Acolyte, nor is any guy, really. In fact, no, this is just going to be a show that's all about your feelings. Everybody's crying, weeping, upset, and unhappy at all times. And that's just the actors.
What's it like working with Leslie on this series?
There's lots of hugging and crying, and
it has been so emotional. I'm shaking.
I'm literally shaking right now because I just had a man approach me in a parking lot.
It's been incredibly emotional, and I have cried many times today.
I'm emotional just knowing that you all are a part of this galaxy.
And even the reason why this show exists, what do you like most about it? Well, I do enjoy the colours and this fashion.
I think you'll be excited to see some of the colors that we use in our spaceships, and you'll obviously see the costumes of the Jedi.
I don't know, it just doesn't seem particularly masculine to me. And among all of this was a series of funny moments, weird moments, and just the downright bizarre and creepy that went on. I have no idea what is meant to be going on here.
Come here. You people at home, you people in the audience. I won't make it weird, I promise. But come closer.
Although there was one actress who seemed to make a genuine effort to try and win over the fans, to actually listen to complaints that people may have had before and go, no, we're not doing that anymore. Like, we've got this from the volume.
Built so much of it. It's not, on the volume. It is built, and so we really are in the world. It's really very cool.
The volume, which has been repeatedly criticized, including by me, for just not looking very realistic and having an incredibly limiting impact on how you can even shoot a scene to begin with. It was weird when she introduced herself, though.
Now, Rebecca, can you tell us a little bit about your character?
I play a Mary Allen.
I think you mean Mary Sue, love. And when she actually tried to appeal to the fans and win them over to her side, it was rather unfortunate that Disney has already sort of taken that out at the knees.
The fans are the best. I mean, they really are. I've been hearing about that.
The fan base have decided to attack Moses Ingram online and send her the most horrendous racist DMs.
Welcome to the family. We are more than lucky to have you.
You're no Star Wars fan in my mind.
You can't really talk about all the great things that people at Disney Star Wars say about the fans anymore. And of course, no event like this would be complete without the weird disasters. First of all was the choice of music they choose for all the cast to come out and talk about the show to. Like, I'm not sure whether this is meant to be a show about Jedi, or whether they're just walking out of the gates of hell, let alone when one of the cast doesn't exactly have a great, public relations filter, shall we say.
Being here right now with all of you guys is me, letting it sink in. I'm like, holy...
Although I have a feeling her reaction to it is something that I'll get to use in the future.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry.
But when it comes to entertainment, it can be very deep, very complex. What are you actually looking forward for the fans to experience from your work? There's so many different answers and possibilities you could go for. I want to see the values, the wisdom that we can pass on, the stories that will mean something to you for the rest of your life, the twists, the turns, the entertainment value alone will be absolutely incredible. Or we could go down a different route.
What about The Acolyte are you most excited for the fans to see?
We have the best cast that anyone could ever ask for. They are truly, truly remarkable.
The thing is, she's not wrong. The cast are remarkable. In fact, there's one actor in particular who is very special.
The best parts about Star Wars is there is no good or evil.
Yeah, he is absolutely correct, Alderaan, that just had it coming. When Anakin went and met the younglings, he was just teaching them that they really should have obeyed their bedtime. And of course, Grogu decided to eat a mother's babies in front of her, and she could do nothing to stop him, because the Mandalorian was protecting him. Oh, and of course, George Lucas had absolutely no idea what he was talking about in Episode 4 when he called it the Evil Empire. No, I'm just glad I could be enlightened by this man's particular brand of wisdom. And it only gets worse when he starts to explain what he means even more and why he thinks this way.
Depends on what side you're standing on, truly. You can look at any angle and see yourself relayed through all the characters.
Anakin wiping out the defenseless younglings wasn't actually evil at all, because you can imagine yourself in that position, and you're not evil, therefore Anakin can't be evil. This is the most basic, self-absorbed sense of morality I've seen, and can only come from somebody who can't even grasp abstract concepts at all. So he has no idea about what morality might be, or principle. All he sees is himself. I may have made that decision, and I'm not evil, therefore nobody can be evil. He can't actually imagine the perspective from somebody else existing in the world. He can only put himself into their position, and then just assume that everybody else must think exactly the same way he does. It's the complete inability to even think about something that isn't him, let alone consider an idea like morality, which isn't actually tied to a person. Now, I've been thinking about this a lot recently, because I think it might be one of the reasons why we have such terrible stories now, in that the writers also simply cannot comprehend abstract concepts, which is why we no longer get heroic characters now, or anything to do with fatherhood. They know what a father is, somebody who just provides genetic material, but they can't grasp the concept of fatherhood, which would be to protect, provide, to send someone forward into the world, the requirement or desire to sacrifice yourself in order to benefit the next generation. All of that is beyond them because it's an idea, it's not just an individual, and they have to drag everything down to themselves or their mate Dave. Which is also why I think representation has suddenly become so important. They see everything on the individual layer because they can't comprehend anything greater, which means all your basic individual self-obsessed, self-absorbed things become so much more important as you've got nothing else in your life to care about. Which is how you end up in a position where you can't even understand morality to the point where you think there is no good and evil in Star Wars.
The best parts about Star Wars is there is no good or evil.
Even if he does immediately turn around and contradict his own statement just seconds later.
This show is truly about that balance of power and balance of good versus evil.
And this isn't just a problem that he has either. In another interview, they had Kathleen Kennedy, who was speaking about what she learned from George Lucas and the importance of making a connection with the audience.
That was the thing that George said to me over and over again. Whatever you do, make sure it has meaning. It makes you feel something. That's what we try to do with every single story we tell.
Of course, if you have the habit of reducing everything in the universe down to simply yourself, you're not really going to understand what that means. And so instead, you think everything has to be about the individual, which is probably why when she's having discussions to make these connections with the audience, everything just starts boiling down to the writer themselves, the individual, what actually affects them.
What are you trying to say in your storytelling? What's important to you? I often find that I'm talking to people about things that really personally affected them.
Nothing about this is universal. Nothing's based on concepts, ideas, or anything that could apply to everybody as a general point of principle. No, it's just, I want this is me, this is something that's important to me, I must write about it. Which might be one of the reasons why so many stories now are just self-inserts, because that's the way they're being taught, that's the discussions which are happening backstage. Everything is about the individual because no one can physically comprehend anything greater than themselves. Of course I'm writing up my experience, my emotion. Of course I'm putting me into the show. What else do you think I was going to do? And if anything, I think it makes this statement very true. And it's also something we could all tell while it was happening.
When Disney announced that they were going to move into streaming, to be perfectly honest, none of us really knew what that meant.
And of course, it gets even better when the cast not only start contradicting themselves, but each other. Got Leslie Headland coming out and saying The Acolyte tells the story from the perspective of the villains. As Bounding Into Comics points out, in her interview she said she wanted to tell it from the perspective of the villains, the bad guys. If those bad guys are outnumbered, then it gives you the opportunity to see how the Jedi very subtly go from who they were to who they become by the time you're watching episodes 1, 2, and 3. And George Lucas himself had some very enlightening comments about this problem, when he says the only way to overcome the dark side is through discipline. The dark side is pleasure, biological, temporary, and easy to achieve. The dark side is about the individual. It's all internal to yourself. It's the same level of thinking that's like, no, I can put myself in that scenario, so there can't be good and evil.
Depends on what side you're standing on, truly. You can look at any angle and see yourself related through all the characters.
No, there can. It's just that you don't realize...
Are we the baddies?
Because the light side is joy, everlasting, difficult to achieve, a great challenge. You must overcome laziness, give up pleasures, and overcome fear. The light side would require some appreciation for delayed gratification, working for an end to improve yourself, which is greater than where you are now. And for that, it can't be about yourself. It can't all be internal like the actor was suggesting. It actually requires the ability to understand that there is something greater than yourself and there are ideas out there that are worth striving for, rather than just the quick biological temporary pleasure that you could get purely concerned with your own body. Which, when you put it all together, suggests that his very comment would simply be a description of an evil point of view. And then you've got Kathleen Kennedy herself coming out with a statement, which is quite frankly astonishing, when she says that Star Wars, quality is everything. Have you considered telling that to Boba Fett, Kenobi, or Mandalorian Season 3. She says, we don't want Star Wars to just become like everything else. We want something that continues to live up to the expectation that the fans have. Which, considering the expectation they have now is everything you produce is going to be crap, that's quite a low bar. Although if you mean their prior one, that Star Wars was actually good, then I think you've been letting them down for quite a while by this point, even if that is the most important thing to all of us. Banding Into Comics says it's unclear what Kennedy actually means by quality, given the biggest black eye as Rian Johnson directed The Last Jedi at a 42% audience score. Then we got The Mandalorian with the next episode featuring Lizzo and Jack Black, which is getting a 6.5 weighted average on IMDb, and the latest season has posted the 3 worst rated episodes out of its entire run. So instead, we live in a time where everything's emotional, everyone's just crying all over the place, and The Acolyte is going to be a show all about your feelings. Because this is a woman-centric show, the patriarchy must be torn down.
Yes, yes. In a very woman-centered world. Star Wars is very, like, patriarchal.
Because Kathleen Kennedy has finally got her way, something she's been wanting to do for a long time. We're growing the workforce to put as many women as possible into executive positions, as well as getting them as the protagonist we're putting into stories, and she hugely supports that. 50% of her executive team don't have dangly bits, and 6 out of the 8 people in her story group are exactly like her. In fact, a lot of people would be surprised that they're making Star Wars movies, and the majority of the people involved in these stories are people who are dangly bit deficient.
Star Wars storytelling has really evolved a lot in the last decade.
It's making a huge difference to the stories that they're trying to tell, and that is what we're going to get in The Acolyte. You're going to see the incredible difference in the stories that they're trying to tell, because it's worked so successfully before, and given everything we've seen at this episode, it's definitely going to continue for The Acolyte, and I personally can't wait to see what they've got in store for us.
I also say it's a very emotional show in a way.
Because as Kathleen Kennedy says, there were a lot of companies who didn't initially feel that Star Wars was for girls, but now it's changed. It's written by them, created for them, and that's basically what seems to be the target audience of all of it. We get a show with them in charge, which is all about your feelings. Everything is so emotional, and every time I walk around a set, I just start crying.
What was it like seeing the audience reaction to the series?
I mean, I cried. I already said that.
We've moved on from the old audience, and we're trying to make a new audience, and we're seeing exactly how successful that is, as Disney's stock price plummets through the floor. And so I can only echo her own statements by saying, what's wrong with that? Because Kathleen Kennedy set them on a goal. She had a target in mind, and she absolutely succeeded in it. And now not only do we have the benefit of hindsight to see how that's worked, but with things like The Acolyte seemingly doubling down on her initiative, it's going to be glorious to see where it ends up. And personally, I can't wait. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe. More videos like this in the future. And I will see you in the next one. And bye-bye.